There are three very common challenges that most business owners have. The first is lack of. The second challenge is usually around cash. And the third very common challenge is around. What's interesting though is that usually all three of them are What I've learned the most from that is how not to do business. And we sold it for 100 multiples. So
100 multiple?
Yes. Yeah, we did buy it for a few thousand and then sold it for a few million.
Alida, welcome to the Benevolent Business Podcast.
Thanks, Aidan.
So I was curious to get you on because we'd met through BNI and just through talking and everything, I found one thing I really loved. So you're a business coach and your background all comes from business. So you've built businesses, sold businesses, had businesses that have gone wrong, gone right. So I'm curious, with your wealth of knowledge and experience, who are you most helpful for? Like all the things that's in your brain and that we're likely to discuss, who will it be helpful listening-wise? What type of business owners?
I have a lot of experience in building small business up to medium size. So that's where I shine, is with small to medium sized businesses. I always get asked, do I specialize? Do I have any industry? That's, I think, the beauty about business. The building blocks remain the same, irrespective of the type of business and the industry that you operate within. If you know how to build and run successful businesses, you can do it in any industry. So such as that I don't mind what industry it is, but clients that are open to personal growth. And they really want to fulfill potential, the business potential, their own potential, the people that are in the business. They just want to grow and be good.
I'm curious, when generally, in your experience, when people look for a business coach, are they coming to you because they're excited to grow their business, or are they coming to you because they've got this problem and that challenge? Which do you see more of?
It's usually the challenge, right? So something's not working in the business, and they're experiencing pain of some sort, and that's when they reach out for help.
What is that problem? What is that pain or the challenge?
There are three very common challenges that most business owners have. The first is lack of time. So the business is driving them. They're not driving the business. They're working way too many hours, way too stressed on the day-to-day. The second challenge is usually around cash flow and how to get a consistent flow so they don't have this up and down cycle, stressing about next month, and then there's one great month, and then it's stress again for the following month. So getting consistent cash flow. And the third very common challenge is around team challenges, managing team, recruiting team, motivating, getting to high performance. Those are the three most common challenges that I usually get contacted for, or when I speak to business owners, identify that these are challenges they're experiencing. What's interesting though is that usually all three of them are interconnected. So lack of time leads to lack of cash flow, and vice versa. And having team challenges also impacts on cash flow and your time. So they are, in my mind, kind of like a trinity. So interconnected.
Okay, so let's dive into your story to then come back and full circle round to that and look at solving those problems. So your introduction into business, if I've got it in the right order, is your parents' takeout business. So how did you end up involved in that business, and what was...
Cheap labour, Hayden.
Okay.
Cheap labour. So we, as children, we worked in the business. Usually on weekends. It was an expectation that as a mouth to feed, you've also got to contribute to the household. So helped out in the business, what I've learned the most from that is how not to do business.
Oh, I like it. What did you
Yeah.
learn not to do then?
Well, I mean, my parents did the best they could at the time. They didn't have access to knowledge like we do today, right? They just kind of had to learn as they go. But yeah, they didn't manage it as well as it could have been managed. So it was always the same challenges. Cash flow was often very stressful. But I think the time, anyone that works in any kind of hospitality industry, whether that's food or other, knows the long hours that goes into that. They worked 7 days a week. The shop was open early mornings till late at night. It's a takeout business, right? Yeah, and their marriage failed as a result.
Oh, wow.
So they got divorced and they sold it, the business. And yeah, I think it affected their health. So yeah, I kind of learned what not to do and what, or maybe not as at that age. Maybe it was more about what I don't want.
So that experience was your introduction into business, and so if I've right, it's the first business you set up was your sales and lettings.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we I met my husband in London, and we decided to return back to South Africa, and yeah, we got there. We were like, what are we going to do? And we had an opportunity to buy into a very new franchise at the time. Called Just Letting. It now is called the Just Property Group. But starting out, we only did lettings. But we grew that business over the 12 years, and we sold it for 100 multiples. So
100 multiple?
Yeah, so I think, oh gosh, it was, it was 100 multiples. So, but it was, I mean, it was a very small startup franchise, so the input cost was very low. So, you know, if you take it from that perspective, it sounds much bigger than what it actually was. But yeah, we did buy it for a few thousand and then sold it for a few million.
You bought it for a few thousand and sold it for a few million?
Yeah.
Well done.
Over 12 years. And yeah, we grew that to a team of 20. I think at its peak, we became more streamlined, so we didn't need as many staff. And then it was over two different territories or towns. We had 2 offices, so we sold one to existing staff. We were like family there, and they bought it from us. And the other one we sold to a competitor that just wanted to take the brand into their own. So yeah, that was a very successful business. It was tough. And that's how I got into coaching as well, being a client with Action Coach, and then transformed it, because it was tough the first 5 years building that business. And then once we had the coach, it was just upwards from there.
So what was your biggest problems? Was it the same thing with time management, cash flow, managing your team?
Same problem, yeah. I think our biggest pain point was team management. I mean, we didn't know about management and leadership. You just, you did what you could. But yeah, there were issues with tribunals and, a lot of HR problems. And yeah, but that's where Action Coach really helped. It's helped with our communications skills and building team and leadership, I think, was a lot of the value we got. And then once that improved, everything else improved. The cash flow improved, and then we had more time back as well. So once I had more time, I could then look for something else, and yeah, that's how I got into Action Coach.
So what made you want to sell the business?
So we wanted to semigrate down to the coastal area. We wanted to live at the beach, living the life.
Yeah.
Because the area we were in were very industrial. Power stations is the main industry there. So very industrial area. So it's it wasn't a very clean. Air is not clean. It's not a very clean area. and so we wanted to semi-grade to the Cape to live by the beach. So we sold it. But purely just that we invested into the next business, so we needed to release the cash from the business to invest into a solar business.
Yeah, because you sold the lettings company and then invested into a solar company, because that was another franchise, wasn't it?
Yeah, so again, it was a very new franchise, and we thought, we know what we're doing, right? We've done this before very successfully, so yeah, let's just do it in another type of industry. My husband is electrician by trade, so it made sense. It failed miserably. We lost our investment into that. So.
And was that a few thousand, or was that?
No, that was a good substantial amount.
Okay.
That we lost with that. We went too big too quickly, so bought a lot of stock. We had a shop floor.
Yeah.
We had, we essentially had a shop with stock. We didn't do our market research. We were blinded by the idea of living by the coast and going to the beach all day.
So your idea was to live there and then sell solar to all of the residents around the area.
But we didn't do proper market research. The challenge there is, I think with many coastal towns, if they don't have industry, they are holiday destinations. And people are less concerned about their holiday home having solar power than what they are with, where they live and they need power on a day-to-day. That was it. The market just wasn't as big as we anticipated it to be. And being a small town, it's also, it's not what you know, it's who you know to get into the industry. Many lessons learned.
So talk me through key things of just surface level of what would you do differently if you was to do it again? So if you was going to have a solar franchise again, what would you do differently to make sure it didn't end that way?
First of all, investigate the market and whether you actually have a commercial enterprise, meaning there is buying power for the product or service you want to provide in the market. So probably won't do it down there, would go elsewhere where there's a higher market, which is in the northern areas of South Africa in that instance. The very first thing I'll do differently. Don't just assume there's a market. You've got to do the research. And secondly, don't go big too fast. So
really?
I would have, if I do it over, definitely would start just out of the garage, moving a few units until it scales, and then you can go and do the shop and invest in all the stock. Those were the two big things that I definitely would do different.
Yeah, definitely agree. So I think of every service or every business I'll launch here, I would only ever do with a waiting list. And I take a lot of that lesson from Dan Priestley and listen to a lot of his podcasts. But just when I think, so like Pink Panda introducing a new service now, I'm just building a waiting list of going out to the market and being like, here's what I'm thinking of doing, are you interested? And then invariably people are like, yeah, it sounds interesting actually. And I've got a whole frame of how I ask. And then with that, the idea is build up a waiting list and then I'm doing a lot of hiring at the moment, recruiting at the moment. On Monday, I think I've got 5 interviews back to back. Today, I've got 2 or 3 interviews this afternoon. And that is just finding people, matching on values, and then just going, right, are you interested in this company? And hire who I want to hire first. But then with the rest of them, I'm not going to say, oh, no, you're not hired. I'm going to say, I'm interested in you joining the company, but right now we need this type of person. But you can come along in 3, 6, 12 months' time. But if you learn this stuff, we'll keep in touch. But once you learn that stuff, that will help accelerate you to join the company with us. And so that way, it's kind of like trying to create this. What I'm trying to do, create this balancing act where I've got a whole bunch of prospects that are like, yeah, we're ready to go. Like, when can we be clients? And then I've got team members going, we're ready to go. When can we join the company? And then, as you said, like, start small and just like with the solo, if you did it again, start out the garage. That's like what I'm trying to do with Pink Panda. It's just build one team, provide this service, make sure it works, and iron out all the kinks and stuff. There's no doubt going to be some problems at the start, and making sure like all of the pricing's right and all the way that you plan to do the pipeline and the workflows is all correct, and there'll be some iterating. But once you've kind of got that with one team, is then get it to 2 teams, to 3 teams, to 4 teams as quickly as possible. Let's get that core one team working smoothly, so you know it works, and you've got demand, you've got clients, you've got a team. Yeah, so I definitely agree with you on those things. Like, market research before you start anything, because so many of us start a business with a core offering, and this is what I did with my first business. Just as you said, just started a business based on like, yeah, I like this idea. Right, I'm going to launch it. Oh, I need customers now, and it's like, is anyone there? No. So you, from the solo, is that afterwards you went down the route of, you had a restaurant with your mum, didn't you?
No, that was during when we still had the Just Property Group.
Oh, okay.
Business.
So you had a side venture during.
Yeah, so it was. My mom wanted to go back into a takeout business, and I wanted to support my mom.
Yeah.
And don't ever go into business with family. Is what I learned from that. Yeah, that didn't go very well. It damaged our relationship.
Really?
It took years to recover from that.
Right, I'm interrupting this conversation just because I want to talk to you about one of the sponsors, which I love and get to use every week of my life, and that is Dragon Co-working. This podcast is sponsored by Dragon, and it's also recorded here mostly, depending where the guest is. And I just want to tell you the story of why I work at Dragon. Now, I knew of Dragon like a couple of years before I started working here, and in my first company I was like, oh, I love this place, wouldn't it be cool to one day be working here and have an office and whatnot. And sure enough, when I started Pink Panda, I joined Dragon. Just one, because of the culture just drew me in, the type of people that are here, the camaraderie of it, the culture of it just really drew me in. So a great place to work. But there's 2 key things that it's helped me with. One is loneliness. Like, as a solo founder, when I started Pink Panda just being completely on my own, it helped to come to a place where you're not like, obviously you haven't got a clock in and clock out, it's not a job, but like, I'm running my business and having a co-working space. But the key thing was having people I could interact with on a regular basis and actually build like a sense of a community. Like, especially like come lunchtime, you're sitting around with a whole group of people, and then you've got people to like work with, collaborate and pass ideas between. Which leads me on to the second benefit, and that was problem solving. So I actually had an issue with a piece of content I was producing, and it was on the audio, and I just wasn't sure how to fix it. And thought, surely someone here knows. And sure enough, by the time I asked 3 or 4 people, someone was actually like, oh yeah, I know a way that you can fix that audio problem. Boom, done, they fixed it for me. So that is a huge benefit. That just instantly made it worthwhile being here, like from a financial perspective. So that's Dragon Co-working. If you want to experience Dragon for yourself, come along, you can have a day pass and experience it for yourself. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, what tested it there? What was it? Is it a case of, because it's just all the stress of running a business, or disagreements around how to run a business?
Yeah, so it's the latter, where old school business management and the way it should actually be done clash. And then you've got the parent-child relationship at work, where the child listens to the parent, or should be listening to the parent. When the child, well, obviously I thought I knew better. Not as necessarily true in all circumstances and situations, but definitely knew a bit more at that stage, because of having built a successful business. That there are better ways of doing things. A lot of clash, to the point where it started to influence the relationship. Took years to recover, and build it back up. Not sure if it ever will be back to where it was, but a lot of lessons learned, a lot of money lost. putting up hospitality or restaurant or takeaway in this case, it takes a lot of equipment, a lot
It's a
of
lot
layout.
of capital up front.
It's a lot of capital up front, and you have to sell a lot of meals to make up for that investment.
Huge overheads as well.
It is.
And
it
perishable goods.
It is. It wasn't the best idea we had. We closed that down, just wrote it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my mom came and worked with us in the business because she needed support. So we just carried on with Just Property Group.
Okay, so we've got the property group, solar franchise, restaurant, and a few fallouts with family, and some lost investments, businesses gone wrong, and a 7-figure exit. So a whole host of experience. So let's bring that back to the coaching. So obviously that gives you a huge tool chest of just experience and knowledge that you can help. So 3 big things you said was time management, cash flow, and managing the team. So let's solve those. So time management, I come to you as a business owner that's like, I've got no time at all. I'm going to pull up my first company. So we've got a garden maintenance business. Owner of the company's got a team of people. They're battling on and off the tools, but their time management is an issue. So I guess you can ask me some questions on background, but how would you go around helping them save time?
So the very first thing there is, where's time going?
Okay.
So what is it used, wasted, and invested on?
Okay, I'm constantly having problems where I'm supposed to be booking, like going out to look at the jobs to get the business in, quote, close them, chase them up, but I'm also on the tools a little bit here and there, and especially when staff call in sick or don't show up for whatever reason, I then have to go on the tools, do their job, and then I have to try and manage cancelling that. I've got someone in the office, so they have to move that around, so I can't look at the job, and then I have to go out on the tools. But then obviously that means that reputation and that relationship with this new prospect has just been damaged. So I'm less likely to get the job, so I'm back on the tools again. So then I'm trying to play catch up in the evening and see if I can go look at the job. So compound that over weeks and months, suddenly it's like, I've got no time.
Yeah.
So there's your main causes, I'd say,
Right.
in this example, theoretical.
Can I be straight with that?
Yeah.
It's not a time issue, it's a resource issue.
A resource issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the management of resources or the availability of resources.
Yeah.
And to be fair, time is just a resource, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of the challenges that I'm already picking up in the business. The other challenges there is other resources, human resources, processes, systems. All of that compounds into then having a symptom of not having enough time or being overstretched. So although we say I don't have time or there's a challenge around time management, the reality is we don't manage time, we only manage ourselves in the available time we have, and that's the same for all other resources. You can only manage the people with the time they have available. You can only manage your other resources within the time that's available. We all have the same amount of time. There's 86,400 seconds every 24 hours.
Yeah.
But what makes me different from Richard Branson is what that time is invested into. But the time passes. So it's getting away from spending time to making it an investment. So what's the definition of an investment? When you invest something, what's the expectation?
Investment is for the goal of getting a return on it.
Exactly.
So it will do so by you're investing time to create more time in the future. So you're investing time to solve a problem or put a process in place that means that in the future you will have more available time because it would have saved it from there. Whereas spending time is just spending time on that, is using your time on that task rather than investing to build a process to avoid having to spend your time on that task.
Yeah. So having that perspective what would that business owner realize then, do you think?
How much time they're spending and not investing. So they need to look at where they're spending their time, I guess, and then kind of invest their time in putting attention to where they're spending too much time, and then looking at which one can I solve first, and just start to chisel away. So I start putting structures in place and processes in place. Like the example I gave is just like, okay, a quick way to solve that problem is have something where never do quotes in the middle of the day. Or if you've got multiple team members and a particular person's always unreliable, it's just maybe have a few subbies backup that can do a last minute call in. So it kind of gets covered there. Or just make sure your quotes are always done evenings and weekends, and do that for the short term, just to know that that time's free. And then if something comes up, you could try and just take time out of your day. If you need personal time, is take it out of the day rather than evenings and weekends. So I guess that's being more prepared for the worst to come, but then it may be a case of, as you build up the business and put more processes in place, you can then start to put the time in the diary to quote during the day again, because you've got a better system and you'll have additional cover if things go wrong and such. Or it may be that you end up, one of the team members becomes a manager, and then they could go and do quotes. So they're kind of a hybrid of on the tools quoting new prospects. So there's like a few little things there.
Exactly that. And in business, we call that leverage. So Archimedes said that if you give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum to put it on, I can move the earth. And it's the reality that we need to find leverage in our business. Time is a leverage, money is a leverage, systems, they are all leverage. Your team's leverage, but if it's invested, if it's utilized correctly, that it becomes a leverage for you rather than a pain.
Okay, so first one being time, we've kind of ascertained there that time generally comes down to resources. So it's probably going to be something involved in the cash flow or people management. So in the example I gave with the garden company, that's people management was kind of causing the problem for time there. So that makes sense, where from time you would then stem into something else. So let's start with people management next then, because that example of time kind of went into how you manage people. So what if have you got an example of just, obviously don't need to share names, but just an example of a people management problem or a team problem that someone's come to you with before and you've solved it together? Like what was the story
I
there?
can share what I generally do with most businesses I work with, even my own at the time. The very first challenge there is that there's no clear communication. So different levels of that. There's no clear organizational chart. People aren't clear on what their expectations are in their role, or what their role actually even is. So we look at, do they have clear position descriptions, job roles, key performance indicators, so that they are clear on what their job is in the business and what role they have to play and why they are there as a person, what value they are providing.
And that, I'm trying to think what someone listening would be thinking, and if I've been guilty of it in the past, is going, yeah, well, they're a gardener. They cut the grass, there's a job spec, like that's what they do. But you're saying, no, black and white needs to be, here's your job description on a document, and here's the key performance indicators to see. So we can both sit down and go, here's the jobs you've been doing, here's the written document of what you do. Is that matching up? Is the work that you're doing matching up with this description? And having that is like the most important thing in the foundation of building a team, so that you can all look at that and go, right, team, are we all doing what we've got written down as our description? Is there anything we need to amend on that? Rather than just going, well, they've got a background in gardening, they should know how to look after a garden. Or they've got a background in plumbing, they should know how to fit a boiler. Or they've got a background in lettings, they should know how to find a customer and rent it out.
So that's the thing, there's a lot of assumptions made. Just because I have recruited you, you should know what you're supposed to do. So several things stem from that. So when you don't have it, right? So there's an assumption made, it's not clearly communicated, it's not in writing and agreed between two parties. Because it's one thing in your mind as a business owner to think, this is your responsibilities, these are the key performance indicators, but they don't know that, or it's not a clear and they haven't agreed upon. So they will just keep fighting it, right? And you try and manage them and they keep fighting back. So it's getting agreement on top of having that in place. So when you don't have that, several things happen. A culture of blame, excuse and denial, what we call below the point of power, happens within a team and within a company or a business. People blame each other. They make excuses for why not, why things haven't happened, and a lot of denial. So they don't even realize that there's, the pawpaw's going to hit, right? So, as such, it's just chaotic for everybody. The team members under pressure, because they are uncertain of what game we're even playing and what my position in the game is, which is unfair to them, having that pressure, having to make up as they go because they don't have clear structure. And it's stressful for the business owner because he feels like, I'm paying you, but you're not providing me with a return on that, which is, why I've recruited you in the first place. So you have this kind of below the point of power, which we call the victim state in a business. And it's the opposite of high performance. So there's no ownership in the business. There's no accountability and there's no responsibility, which we refer to as above the point of power, which is where the results lie for the business. So that's the thing I work on with most businesses. I could probably count on my hand the number of businesses that do have them. Obviously, they can be tweaked. So it's getting that in place, having a clear understanding of what roles and responsibilities you have in the business. And then another thing that we also do very early on is disc profiling.
I love a good disc profile.
I know, right? They're fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's many of them. You don't necessarily need to do disc. I like insights as well. I deliver that too. But disc is a really good workplace behavioral profile. So hence we use it. But that also gives an indication of, am I suited in the position? Although we don't use it to pigeonhole people, doesn't mean just because you have a certain profile you're not suited for a position. But it does open up communication around, what type of job would fit me best, and maybe there can be a bit of restructure within the team so that they take on different roles and responsibilities best suited to their working style. And then the third part to that is getting alignment. So when we work with business owners about 3-4 months into the journey, we do a business team alignment. And the purpose of that is to align the team behind the goals and the vision of the business. It's you do disc, you do all kinds of fun things. So it's a team building day in itself. But what it does, and the real value of it, it actually gets clarity. Who we are as a team, where we're going, that we're all moving in the right direction, in the same direction. It's not like herding cats. You're all in the same direction. And people start to feel part of something, and that they're not just trying to, survive on their own within the business. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for people management, first step is just, have you got written job descriptions that have got key performance indicators, KPIs, with processes in place, all documented on paper, like on a system somewhere. So when you take someone on, through that recruitment process and hiring the onboarding process, you can say, here is the written description of what you need to do, and you can get them to relay it back, so you can go, right, do you understand what this is? Cool, relay, like tell me what your job is then and what you need to achieve. And then we can, as we catch up and then when we do your reviews and that kind of thing, is we can look at that document and go, right, based on the work you've been doing, have you been meeting these things? It's clear as day because we've written it all out before you even started. And when it comes to how they do what they do, there's processes documented that's like, here's how you do, or here's how we do what we do. So that's like, first building block is make sure all that's in place. And as you said, like most businesses don't have that. And then from there, like if you haven't got that done, just go and do that. So everybody pause and go do that if you haven't. And then from there, you can do more in-depth things of like looking at each other's personalities and disc profile. And disc profiles, it's like a personality test that gives you an indication of like what your personality is like and how you take feedback and how the way that you will communicate and the way that you receive communication and such. Really, really, I love disc profiles as well as other personality tests. So with that then helps you understand the team, and you can start to get aligned on making sure you're all rowing in the same direction because you've got descriptions and processes, you understand each other's personality, and that's kind of the building blocks to going off from there. Yeah. Cool, nailed it. And then the last one is cash flow. So I haven't got enough money, what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm going to pause the conversation for a moment because I'm going to tell you about one of our sponsors. And actually this is a really cool story and quite a shocking one actually. So let's dive into this. IT Manager Services, got talking to Tom. So I want to tell you this story of one of his clients that was an accountancy franchise, that it turned out that their cyber security insurance was actually void because of what their IT provider, their previous one, was doing, or rather not doing. It's definitely something that if you're running a business, you want to watch out for. So the problem was they weren't receiving the quality of service that they were expecting or were promised. So when Tom first met them, they were unhappy with their provider, just through certain things such as they were supposed to be getting all of their software and all of their activity backed up. Turns out it wasn't actually being backed up. They were supposed to have all of the servers moved over to the cloud. That hadn't happened. So you can imagine, big problem. They were annoyed, frustrated, hence why they've called Tom in. So getting started with IT Manager Services, Tom just made sure to get on top of everything. Upgraded all the servers to the cloud, made sure everybody had their own license and account for privacy. So I was using Microsoft, but they had to make sure that every single staff member had their own license, so they weren't accessing each other's accounts and emails and whatnot, because the previous company hadn't looked after that, and it was just a key problem that they need to solve that didn't even realize they had. But also gradually started building more security and automations within their systems that they were using, just to make things more efficient for them. But it was in this part that they actually discovered a key problem was their cybersecurity. Turns out it was actually completely void because they didn't meet the due diligence of all the requirements of what they need to have in place for their IT. So now as a result, of course, their cyber insurance is covering them and they're fully compliant with it. They're now way more efficient in their day-to-day practice and procedures just because of the automations that have been put in place on their systems. And this is all something that Tom and the team at IT Manager Services have done for many of their clients. So what I'd recommend, just for peace of mind, give IT Manager Services a call.
Right, so from your business experience, what impacts cash flow?
What impacts cash flow? I suppose most people would say bringing in enough leads and converting them into clients enough is probably the biggest thing. But also then going into the details of the service, because it's probably one of those things where that's what people look at. But then if you said to someone, show me the margins on your service, so show me the inputs of like what's all the cost of sales associated with each product or service you offer. And so we can ascertain what margins you've got, what gross margin you've got, and then what net margin you've got. So we can look at what's all your overheads. Is that all documented? Are you checking on your overheads like once a quarter, once a month if you're in the shit? Like, are you checking that regularly to see, are we wasting money anywhere? And I suppose most people are just going, I need more leads. And it's like, well, you don't need more leads if you're not profitable. You need to look at the expenses. Yeah. Did I answer that right?
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? So first of all, there's got to be profit margin.
Yeah.
And not markup, because most people generally confuse the two. They're not the same thing. Markup is putting extra onto a cost. Yeah. But margin is taking the expense from the sale price, so you're actually getting a true reflection of how much you're making.
So as an example, it'd be like, I bought this mug for £5 and I sold it for £10. So my markup is £5, but then the margin is, yes, there's £5 markup, but of that, what did it cost me for someone to stand in my store? Or if it's e-commerce, what did it cost the business for that transaction to go ahead? Yeah. And then what are all of the overheads? How many have we sold? Well, if we divide that overhead figure by how many we've sold, that gives us a cost per unit. And then we can go, well, our profit is what's left over.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you go, what's left over? Oh, it's actually minus £2.50. It's like, well, there's no profit.
That's the thing. So there's also variable cost.
Yep.
And fixed costs that you have to consider. So variable is then your gross profit, and that should be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's enough over to pay the overheads, which is the fixed costs.
Yeah.
So we always look at gross profit first. You know, are you making good margin on your actual sale, so that there's enough profit to then pay all the expenses in the business. To make the install at the end. So that's the first thing, is margin, and getting good margin on products and services. The other thing is the cash gap is always, sometimes, not in all businesses, but in many businesses is a big challenge as well. So cash gap is from when you've provided the product or the service until you get paid. And that gap can be a killer.
Mm-hmm. Especially commercially, like if you've got 90, 120 days.
Exactly, and you know it's just business, right? When you do business with bigger companies, they play the cash gap game. So they will have terms that are 30, 60 longer. So they hold on to the cash, but it can kill a small, medium-sized business. So it's also managing your gap and looking at your process behind collecting. So invoicing as quick as possible, start collecting immediately. So as soon as the day goes that they are past the due date of payment, you start collecting. No delay, no excuse. So it's shortening your cash gap. Then you start looking at marketing and sales conversion to improve the turnover in the business. But unless you have good processes to keep profitable and healthy margins and processes to shorten your cash gap, when you start pumping from the top, it just makes the bottom bigger, if that makes sense. So that gap you already have at the bottom just gets bigger. So you're doing all this work, because marketing and sales is hard work, right? It's expensive. If you're doing good marketing and you're doing it right, and if it's working, it's going to pump a lot of leads and business through the business. But then it just trickles out at the bottom in terms of cash flow and profitability because you haven't sorted that bit out. So we start there. Makes sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Have you ever had a business that you've looked at and kind of run the numbers and just been like, you might as well just close up shop? Like, I wonder if you've got like a...
Yeah.
I mean, like looking at the garden business, like if I took a garden company, for example, no doubt there's got to be a garden company around or multiple where they're trying to charge the cheapest amount they can to do the job, but then they're trying to pay staff the highest amount they can. But then also they've got brand new vehicles all leased, so they're paying high monthlies on that, and then maybe some of the tools they've done the same thing, and then they've got a yard that they're paying high, but just the area that they're in, they're paying a higher rent. And it's like, when you look at all of those things, it's like, if they'd done that compared to the other garden company, to use like your example with the solar, it's like they started from the garage instead, so they're not paying any rent for, instead of a fancy yard, they're just working out of their garage, and their team pulls up and they've worked it out so they can have a few team members there from their garage, so no rent, plus they started just with second-hand mower, second-hand van, and just over time built it up and managed to get a nicer van and nicer mowers. So there's no debt compared to this company that's got all these leasing agreements, finance agreements, and possibly borrowed money, and then they've got loans to repay and everything. So I wondered if you've ever had a business like this, looked at it and just gone, sorry, you've got no luck. Have you ever had that? Or have you,
Yeah, that's why we go through a process before we onboard a new client. We have a look into their business. We're not miracle workers. we often say that we're more like a personal trainer in a gym.
Yeah.
It's when you're fairly fit and healthy. You just want to get better,
Mm-hmm.
stronger and fitter. But if you are in the hospital, you need medical care. You don't need a personal trainer.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Oh, I get it. That's a good analogy.
So there are other services that are designed to help businesses that need to recover. We're not the best fit and best suited because we will accelerate growth. But if there's nothing to grow and there's too much holding it back, it won't grow. And because we guarantee results, we have to make certain that we will be able to get results for our clients. I can't promise you results if I don't even know where to start to get results. Most clients that we engage with, very early on, I already see where I can help the business grow, so I can service my guarantee. And that's also what I recommend to businesses whenever they're thinking of getting help into the business, whether that's coaching or consulting. Is it guaranteed? Are they guaranteeing results?
So I take it you guarantee results.
We do.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, so we actually guarantee that we will make up our the investment in coaching in your profit, or we'll refund you the difference or coach you for free.
Oh wow, nice.
Until we do, yeah. No, it's got to be an investment for the business. Otherwise,
Yeah.
why do it, right? Why invest time and energy and getting out of your comfort zone and making change, which is not easy. There's extra hours and all of that. If it's not going to get you more money, better results in the business, it doesn't make practical sense for me. So why would you?
Oh, perfect. So as a guarantee, we've talked through the big problems of time management, cash flow, team management, learned about your business experience of, I say failed businesses, but you always take loads of lessons from them, and then successful businesses and exits and everything.
I learned more from the failed than from anything else.
I think we all do, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've got a closing tradition on the podcast, always end with the same question. So Alida, what is one thing that exists within the world today that you hope will one day be eradicated?
The sense that we are separated from each other, or separated from everything, and we're not. We are all connected.
I've got a whole theory on that will take me. It's a whole nother podcast, but yeah, like literally, we are all of the earth. Our atoms that make up ourselves are all of the earth that we've all borrowed, and we get to live our life because of what we've taken from the earth, and then we give it back at the end, and then those atoms become part of somebody else. So, as you say, we all are. Energy is never created nor destroyed. So,
that's it.
Alida, thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you.
This conversation has been brought to you and produced by Pink Panda Productions, where we make marketing for purpose, that purpose, build your business. How effective is your marketing? Don't know? Want to know? Take our 2-minute quiz and find out exactly how effective your marketing is at drawing in your ideal client, your ideal team member, and your ideal partner, so that you can stop wasting so much time interviewing candidates that just aren't quite the right fit, stop wasting so much time meeting with prospects that aren't ready or aren't right for your business, and find great partnerships to help build your business with other businesses. So take the 2-minute marketing quiz to find out how effective your marketing is. Look in the link in the description to take your quiz and get your score.